Good afternoon, everyone. This is Marie Sullivan, and I'm here to convene our work session this afternoon. I think most folks who need to be present are here. So it's 4:30 and I'd like to get started. I'd like to announce that we are live captioning our meetings. So please look in the chat window of our WebEx meeting site where you will find a link. Please click on that link to open a web page with the live captioning. So at this time, I call to order the work session of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board for December 6, 2022. For the record, I will call a roll of board members commenting that work sessions and agenda reviews are not mandatory. Opportunities for attendance for board members. But let me begin. I will start noting that Ms. Susan Bittersmith is on a plane and unable to join us right now. We'll move to Ms. McGrath. Are you with us?
I'm present, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Narini.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Thor.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen.
Present.
Thank you. With my attendance, we have 6 board members present, 1 absent. Mr. Burnett, were you able to join us this afternoon? Our student advisor trustee is not on record with us this afternoon. So want to bring us to order to engage in a work session regarding tuition, as was requested at our last board meeting. Ms. Kim Granillo, our Vice Chancellor for Business Services, will be our primary presenter with additional input from Mr. Chuck Coolidge. Dr. Gonzalez, do you have any comments before we move into the work session this afternoon?
President Sullivan, I want to make sure that you can hear me. I'm having some issues here.
I can hear you right now.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, good evening or good afternoon, everybody. This is a work session. It's a continued conversation based on a budget presentation that was given last week or 2 weeks ago, excuse me, where additional information was requested from members of our board regarding tuition. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kim Granillo, our Vice Chancellor of Business Services, to take full advantage of the time that we have with you for her presentation. And as always, we look forward to your feedback and happy to answer any questions that you may all have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalez. President Sullivan, members of the governing board, members of CEC, colleagues, and guests. I do want to start out today's session with a song choice. And I think at some point I'm going to pick one that is more typical and has money in the title, so I don't feel like I have to explain it. You have to all get into my brain, which is always challenging. But my song choice today is a song called Join Together by The Who. And to share it, for the past year, I've talked all about us being in the budget challenges together. And there's a verse in this song that resonated with that approach. And it goes something along the lines of, do you really think I care what you eat or what you wear? Won't you join together with the band? There's a million ways to laugh. Everyone's a path. Come on and join together with the band. So basically, it's just getting at it doesn't matter what hat you wear at Maricopa. We all have a role in helping navigate through these budget challenges. So like I said, I think maybe next time I'll pick one that has money in the title and then we can move on.
Well, that was very nice. Thank you, Ms. Granillo. That was a very nice thought.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Tina, if we could go ahead and share the presentation, please. Okay, thank you so much. And as was shared, Chuck Coolidge will be joining us to speak to some information we have to share on some student feedback and input. And if we could go to the next slide, please, Tina. So on our agenda for today for this work session, we're going to go through a few different pieces. We'll review the 5-year projections, which you all will probably get tired of seeing in the future. We'll talk a little bit more about basic tuition information. We'll then go into what the tuition proposal is or could be for fiscal 24. It'll have 3 components to it, including basic, upper division, and consideration of a change in the out-of-state surcharge. And then we'll close it up with student feedback. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Tina. So this again is a look at the 5-year projection, and we'll start with this as we have prepared this in the spring, and it's a 5-year look at our general fund budget. And this is what we are using and the path that we're taking to move Maricopa back to a structurally balanced budget for the general fund sometime around fiscal year 26 or 27. And just as a reminder, about 15.4 million was anticipated to be generated by a $3 per credit hour tuition increase in basic tuition, and then also the implementation of a differential tuition structure for fiscal 24. And as we talked 2 weeks ago at the work session, we are not ready to implement differential tuition. So with that, we were asked to come back this week with some more information about what might be a larger tuition increase for basic tuition to replace the differential tuition as we work through some complications and some work that needs to be done in that space. If we can go to the next slide, please, Tina. We were also asked to talk about what could be some potential impacts if we were not to do a larger tuition increase. And so basically what we can share is that if we don't consider at least a $10 increase, this list are potential reductions and impacts that could occur if we decide we need to do reductions beyond the 1% that our system is looking to implement for fiscal 24 already as part of that 5-year look from the previous slide. So we would be looking at potential reductions, larger reductions in technology refreshes or delays in that space. Also having to potentially look at operational support reductions for various programs, which could include marketing, student support, academic support, etc. We also could potentially be looking at additional reductions in positions, and we would always, as a system, look at vacant positions first. We could decide to do some sort of a hiring freeze where we don't fill positions that become vacant, hold vacant positions longer than we currently are. And lastly, we could potentially need to reduce filled positions. The larger reductions do come in the space of part-time positions and adjunct faculty. And I think I shared that a couple of weeks ago, that is one of the levers that we have as a higher education institution when we have changes in enrollment, when we don't know if they are permanent or short-term changes. So we've been using those levers certainly for the past few years. And with that, we'll go to the next slide, which will take us into the tuition discussion. And next slide, please, Tina, one more. Thank you. And so this is just a snapshot of our tuition history, very basic. In 2018, we had a $84 per credit hour tuition. I'm sorry, 2016. 2023, we are at $85 per credit hour, so a $1 change over that time period, and that's a 0.17% increase. And just for comparative purposes, the average annual inflation for the same period is about 4%. If we can go to the next slide, you all have seen this one before as well, and it is just to show that if we had kept tuition rates, or if tuition rates had followed inflation, we would be somewhere in the $107 to $109 per credit hour range using the inflation factors that are most applicable to higher education. Again, this is just trying to show that we have inflation that is impacting everyone, and our credit hour rates have not followed inflation. And if we could go to the next slide, please, Tina. And this is just a graphical representation of where we could be if tuition had followed inflation. And we'll go to the next slide, please, Tina. So we do have questions that have come up about financial aid versus tuition. And what this chart shows is a comparison of fiscal year 15 to fiscal year 22, which is the most recent completed year. And really, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the average Pell Grant has grown 22% over that time period, whereas our tuition has grown 1% over that same time period. And we can show that in fiscal 15, the average Pell Grant paid 183% of Maricopa tuition. And by the time we get to fiscal 22, it pays 220% of Maricopa's tuition. I do also want to share that any tuition changes that we have going forward are built into the cost of attendance for financial aid purposes. I will share that approximately 32 to 34% of Maricopa students receive financial aid. And I also want to share that we are planning a governing board work session for January or February of 23 to take a deeper dive into how we establish the cost of attendance, how we package financial aid, and then what causes adjustments to the cost of attendance once they've been built. So we'll take a deeper dive into the financial aid space in a work session solely for that purpose. And with that, we'll go to the next slide, please, Tina. So we also want to share a comparison of how our tuition rates compare to some of our peer institutions, if you will. And I will share that for ASU, so we have their tuition is $11,618 for fiscal 23. Maricopa's tuition at $2,550 is less than 20% of that. If we were to go to increase tuition by $10 per credit hour, which you'll see a little bit later in the presentation is the recommendation, that would still keep us at less than 25% of ASU's tuition. And that is provided that ASU does not increase tuition for fiscal 24. I do believe that they have a commitment to keep their increases at 3% or less. And so we'll see what happens there. And if we look at kind of the fourth column over, which is the WICHE rate, or the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, which really are 16 states in the Western US. So also I would say are comparators for us. We run about 69% of that average of those 16 states. We'll go to the next slide, please, Tina. So this then is a comparison of our district to our sister districts in our state. And if we were to go to the $95 per credit hour, it would put us at number 3 out of 10 with our peer institutions. And that is provided also that they don't increase their rates in fiscal 24. I will share that Central Arizona College, or Pinal County Community College District, has already approved a $25 increase in their rate for fiscal 24. You will notice that that brings them up to a $75 rate. And I think we've talked before about the fact that they reduced their tuition to 0 in fiscal 22 because they used federal HERF money, stimulus funds, to pay for their tuition instead of charging their students. So they are moving back to the arena where they used to be in the $75 to $85 range. And then Yavapai County Community College District has also approved a $5 increase for fiscal 24. Our number 3 includes those two adjustments, just to share. With that, then we'll go to the next slide, please, Tina. So this schedule really just presents what potential new revenues could be generated by the various levels of increases, ranging from obviously a $0 increase, which would generate 0 new revenues, to $15 per credit hour increase, which would generate just under $25 million of new revenues. So essentially every $1 of increase in basic tuition generates about $1.6 million in new revenue based on the attempted credit hours that we are anticipating for fiscal 24. And with that, we'll go to the next slide, which takes us to the proposed tuition changes for fiscal 24. And the first one we have in front of us is an increase in basic tuition of $10 per credit hour. Again, it generates approximately $16.5 million in new revenues. It does keep Maricopa on track to return to a balanced budget around fiscal year 26 or 27, again, replacing the anticipated differential tuition that will delay for at least a year. And that is an 11.8% increase over fiscal year 23, which again, over the prior 7 years, we've had a 0.17% increase. The next one that we would propose is to establish the bachelor degree or upper division course rate at 150% of basic tuition. So if we make no adjustments to basic tuition, that would make it $127.50 for upper division courses per credit hour. If we were to increase basic tuition to $95 per credit hour, it would equate to $142.50 for upper division courses. This is the maximum factor allowed by state statute. And I will also share that we know we are committing $2 million a year annually from Prop 207 funds to launch the four-year degree programs. So at some point we will need to institutionalize the support for those programs over time. And those revenues that would be generated by the extra 50%, we would look to get those to the colleges that are generating those tuitions. And then the final recommendation for 24 is to look at the out-of-state tuition surcharge. And what we would recommend is to increase that surcharge by the same percentage as we were to increase basic tuition. So if we were to do the $10 per credit hour, that would be 11.8%. So we would recommend increasing the rate from $241 per credit hour to $270 per credit hour. And I will also share that the last time we raised the out-of-state tuition rate was actually in fiscal year 2009-10, so essentially 13 years ago. And with that, we'll go to the next slide, and I will turn it over to Chuck, and I'm hoping he has joined the call. I think I've seen him.
Is he on as a panelist? I haven't heard from him. Well, let's do this while we're waiting for Mr. Coolidge. Before we get into the student feedback, and that was the result of us asking for comment from students as a result of our conversation 2 weeks ago. But in the meantime, are there questions around specific slides right now from board members before we get into the student feedback? And I'm also getting a text from Chuck that somehow he can't speak here. He's trying to, but can't get in. Could Jordan, you double check on that for him, please, unless you're through now, Mr. Coolidge? Okay, I'm getting, I am on, can't speak.
Ms. Sullivan, he's not showing as a participant.
Yeah, that's why I wondered if he was listed as a panelist. Okay. Sorry to distract everyone with this. He's having trouble logging in as a panelist. Jordan, do you have his number that you can connect with him?
I don't, but I will quickly get it. Give me just a moment.
Okay, so while you're doing that, board members, I'm going to take us back to where I was. And that is, what questions might you have about particular slides or comments before we get into that piece and have a more thorough discussion? Is there something glaring for any of you? Do you want me to call you by name? I can do that.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mrs. McGrath. Do you want to go with a question or
Thank you.
two?
Yes, we have asked numerous times in the past to not compare our college district to ASU. They are two entirely different entities, and to compare them as to costs and pricing and tuition and such is just, the only word I can think of is ridiculous. It's a waste of our time, because we should only be compared to peer institutions, which are fellow two-year institutions. And I don't know why we can't get that into people's heads, that we've been asked over and over and over to please compare us to institutions that are like us rather than ASU. And another thing I'd like to know, when they're talking about the projected revenues, are they taking into account the increase in property taxes that will be coming from the increase in valuation? And if so, why not?
Okay, if you, I don't have the exact number on my presentation slide right now, but Mrs. McGrath, we are compared to other Arizona community colleges on the slide that followed the larger one with ASU. so that can give you a point of view there. But Ms. Granillo, do you have a response to those comments, please?
Certainly. Thank you, President Sullivan, Mrs. McGrath. So in regards to the property tax question, so we do not levy property taxes based on the rate. It eventually, of course, gets converted to a rate, but we levy property taxes in a dollar amount, and we only increase that dollar amount. We're limited to the 2% per year, which you all know that we're not anywhere near the maxing out our capacity for property taxes. But when we have valuation changes, it just really changes potentially the distribution of how those property taxes are collected. It doesn't generate any new revenue for Maricopa Community Colleges. There's two ways in which we get new revenue from property taxes. And the first one is when we accept levies from, or changes in the levy from, changes in new construction. And so there are parcels that now have a different tax rate than they used to have, or tax assessment than they used to have. And then whenever we do a truth in taxation notice where we choose to raise property taxes. But just changes in the valuations just change how those taxes get paid, not how much Maricopa receives.
So could you tell me what we are anticipating to receive in the future? How much more?
From new construction, let me see if I can put my fingers on that, because we talked a little bit about that last meeting. And we have an estimate for new construction to generate about 13.6 million for fiscal 24, and we'll get the actual numbers in February of 23.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Sullivan?
Yes, Dr. Narini.
So I had a couple comments. One to respond to Ms. McGrath. I'm looking at the trends in college pricing and student aid 2022 by the College Board, where it does compare public two-year institutions across the country. And right now it looks like we are only behind California, New Mexico, and North Carolina as a state, but as a district, it looks like we're only behind California, whose average cost is $1,430 for tuition and fees, and ours would be a little bit more, but they're the only ones who are cheaper than us across the country. California, keep in mind that California also gets about $616 million from their general fund to support the community colleges. And in the same study, they're also pointing out that when adjusted for inflation, since when adjusted for inflation, it looks like our cost has gone down by about 16%. So far be it for me to, I think everybody knows my stance and cost for students and things, but I understand that we do need to look at tuition. And if we can go back to slide 9, I know we're going to be going into a deeper dive, but I just want to make a couple points on slide 9. So we're talking about the cost of attendance. When I sent some questions out, and Ms. Bettina Sellis had sent me some information back. When we talk about cost of attendance and we talk about tuition and fees, the number that we're using is I don't think is quite accurate. It's showing that the budget we're putting for the cost of attendance for tuition and fees is $1,836. And so I think we need to take another look at that, because, and I understand the way we come up with it, and this is a deeper dive. This is way too much in the weeds, but I think we need to take a deeper look at that, because if you look at 12 credits, as we have here, $85 at 12 credits is $2,040, and we're only budgeting $1,836 in our cost of attendance. So those are some of my points that I want to make. And I know as we take a deeper dive in the cost of attendance and some of these things, we can probably sort some of those things out as well.
Thank you, Dr. Rainey. We'll make sure we do that. Sorry, Mrs. Sullivan.
Oh, no, I was going to say, would that be something you would anticipate us talking about in the January, February work sessions?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. The one that's coming up, the one that we have here on the session, Yeah, I think we need to take a real close look at the budgets that we're using to base our cost of attendance, because we're gapping our students by a considerable amount. We're gapping our students who are dependent students living at home by at least, if a student got a full financial aid package, a maximum amount of financial aid, grants, loans, and the whole works, they were still gapped $7,000. They're short with an unmet need of $7,000. Those students living on their own have an unmet need of over $12,000. So just because our tuition and the Pell Grant covers our tuition, we have to look at the entire cost of what it takes to go to school. So for some, like I said, I dove down into a rabbit hole. Those students who are living on their own, who's going to have a gap of $12,000, they're going to have to work 27 hours a week at minimum wage to pay for that $12,000. So a full-time student working 27 hours a week is quite a strain for a lot of those students.
Absolutely. Those are really good points, Dr. Narini, and I know we've consistently heard you. Ms. Granillo may have further comments, but I do want to comment that when we get into the January, February, whenever that is, I think possibly February work sessions devoted to this conversation, that's when we can really talk about the issues that you're raising. Is that your point of view, Dr. Gonzalez and Ms. Granillo?
President Sullivan, yes, that would be a point of view, and that's the intention that we have. So we have Dr. Narini's questions, and Dr. Narini, if there are any additional questions that you'd like us to be prepared to discuss and share with you, we'd be more than happy to do that at that time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and the thing, and what I just want to make sure that we all understand is like I said, tuition. We know that we need tuition. We know we need this to keep our doors open and the lights on, and our professors fed. But we also need to keep in mind the whole cost of a student for the student. And as we look at tuition, I just want to make sure that we keep in mind the big picture. I mean, we're looking at the macro picture of the budget for the whole district, but we also need to look at the micro picture for the students and what it's doing to them. Not that I'm advocating that we don't increase tuition. I'm just saying that we just need to make sure that we keep that in mind when we're looking at this.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? I do understand that Mr. Coolidge is now on, so we can move to other questions, or we can move to Mr. Coolidge.
This is Ms. Smith. I just have a clarification here. On the bottom of the slide that's being shown, the comments have been compiled and submitted to the board member. I was trying to pull those up, and I think I'll just have to do that before the next work session. But who was the sender? So I can try to find it quickly in my email. Who was the sender of those comments that were compiled with the student feedback?
That would be Mr. Coolidge, and I believe he is prepared to respond with Ms. Granillo to those questions.
Okay, great.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. Coolidge. Welcome.
President Sullivan, members of the board, Chuck Coolidge. Sorry it's taken me a little bit of time to get on. We had some technical difficulties. I have been on the whole time, so I apologize on my end. Just as a quick review, post the previous governing board meeting, we were directed to put together the town halls as discussed in that board meeting. Just as a quick overview of what happened there, we were able to put together 3 in-person events, 3 coordinated online events, 1 student senate review with those student senate members, which was about 11 of the student senators, courtesy of Mr. Burnett in setting that up. I know that he's not on, but I appreciate him doing so. We were able to build out a notice of about 3 days prior to the events. So of those events, we had 66 total participants. We had a lot of questions on the event, which we will make sure that those get conveyed on that document. 15 total responses. So 93% of those responses, so that's 14 and positive and 1 negative. That was an international student citing the high cost for international students, while other international programs are free, according to them. We had a significant amount of questions to try to condense them for this meeting. The top really 5 were, is the bachelor program the reason for the increase? What other measures are in place to alleviate the excessive spending? Can we identify faculty that have issues and multiple complaints and remove them? You know, some of these are kind of off the base of what the focus of the town hall was, but just wanted to convey with clarity the questions that were coming our way. And then where is the $10 increase going directly, and will the $10 increase be expanding the offering to students? But like I said, I will convey all of that. I'll make sure that all of that goes to all of the governing board members. I think the initial one just went to the Public Affairs Council, so I will make sure that those are in your inbox by the end of this meeting. Happy to take any questions and answer any questions that you might have regarding the town halls or the outreach in general.
Again, Mr. Coolidge, could you have the anecdotal questions with some of the participants, but can you give us a better sense of the town halls and how they were presented, the information was presented? How did you engage for the responses? And I know, reflecting Ms. comments, there were some key questions, and maybe this is when you go back to Ms. Granillo. I believe they were sent to her. Well, I don't know that for sure, but I believe they were, and she may be prepared to answer some of those questions that were not answered in the town halls.
Yes, ma'am. So the build out of the town halls included basically a small introduction of what was going on. Ms. Granillo is not only a talking singer, but she's now an acclaimed film actress, to where we sent a film crew over to her team. She was able to put together a short video kind of identifying through the slides that she is showing today, on top of some of the informative slides that we had built out paired with the video. And I'm happy to share that link, which I'm sure Ms. Granillo will be excited to show you all of her skills on that side. But as far as that goes, we really wanted to keep it condensed and concise. So the point of the town halls was to share and provide information and reinforce that this is not a vote. This is only to generate better information to share with the board, so that should y'all decide to agendize this item, they will then have a secondary way to exercise their public comment period. And then after, sorry, I had to yell at my dog. After the video was taken, we took some time and gathered all of those questions and were able to take down those responses.
Thank you. And when you, so I believe you implied that the feedback was positive. You did cite some comments, but for those that you didn't reflect anecdotally, what makes you, I mean, what was the nature of the positive response? A little bit more in depth.
Yes, ma'am. So happy to walk through those responses. I'm going to pull up my document here. So it was quite overwhelming, the response rate that we received, as far as, you know, from students and the Student Senate and others, basically saying, you know, while we haven't increased in some time, it's important to do so with everything that's been going on, including the inflation rate and everything else. Another one that was resounding on our end was, we're still significantly cheaper than everyone else. We're still way better than some of the larger universities. I won't call them out here, but we're significantly cheaper and allocating a better education. There was one in particular from the Student Senate that resonated really well with me, which was that you're not going to find what we provide with other larger universities that are paying significantly more, specifically in, you know, the food banks and the clothing shelters and the things that we do on our end, and that they're so grateful for the community colleges, even if we were still at a $90 or higher rate. And even if we went to 100, not that we were asking them if we could go to 100, that they would still be amendable to that because they feel like they're getting that better education and they feel like they're getting the value even at $100 per credit hour. So again, the response rate that we received was extremely positive, and even the negative one was more foundationally question-based than it was adamantly against it.
So, town halls and surveys sometimes have biases. How did you suggest that there would not be a bias towards one answer or another in your town halls?
Exactly for that reason, that, really our job was to gather information to share that with the governing board and let y'all make the decision on how you wanted to move forward. And we empowered our team that delivered this to have the ability to say, our role in this is to give you as much information as we can and provide that to the governing board so that they can make the next steps on that. And otherwise, it's not really up to the presenters to be able to answer some of the more specific questions, only that we would provide that to the governing board.
So it sounds like you have two guests with you this evening, one a canine and one a human being. Is that right?
I am wearing a few hats tonight, President Sullivan, and I apologize for the background noise.
That's okay. We're all there. It's all right. No problem.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Board members, I'm sure you have other questions for him. I just leaped in there. So let me back off here and go ahead and ask Mr. Coolidge any questions you want. And then I know the questions that were raised, Ms. Granillo may be able to respond to, but first let's hear from the board and then move to you again, Ms. Granillo, and some of those responses, please.
Certainly.
Board members, do you have questions of Mr. Coolidge?
I do. It's Mrs. Nguyen.
Sure, please go ahead.
So when you were talking to the students, did you make the distinction between the 2-year program and the 4-year program?
No, ma'am.
So
the distinction as far as the $10 per credit hour proposed increase, you mean?
Well, here's what I'm thinking. We're doing a 4-year program, which we've never done before. And if I was going to charge more because it's unique and because it allows the student to actually get a 4-year degree at a lesser cost, I would think that would be the logical place that we could add tuition without impacting the entire student population. But I just wondered if we said, escalating fees, or we threw in possibly other solutions to this problem that we're not just raising it across the board. And so it's okay if we didn't. I just was curious.
Yes, ma'am. And to that note, we did receive some feedback. And again, I'll make sure that these are in your inbox by the time this meeting is over, that we did receive some questions and feedback that if this could be solely directed at the 4-year degree programs, which again, we did not answer.
Great. Thank you, Chuck.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Oh, but as far as the bachelor degree programs, because I'm reluctant to call them 4 years, because we know our students have trouble being full time.
6 years, 8 years, Tom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I had a 4-year degree from Mesa, so a long time ago. But according to the program, we can only charge 150% of our associate's degree program, or of our lower division credits. Is that correct? So we don't have a lot of leeway with charging more for the bachelor's degree programs.
That is correct, Dr. Narini.
Okay, so if we increase our associate degree or our lower division credits, then we can only that limits how much we can increase the the four-year or the bachelor degree program, correct?
That is correct. It's 150% of our regular tuition is what we're able to charge for the upper division courses.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, other questions for Mr. Coolidge? I have one while someone may be getting in the queue. That is, did you specifically say $10 an hour increase? My understanding was there was not a specific dollar amount discussed. What, is that true, untrue?
No, ma'am. We did not.
You did not give a specific dollar figure.
Correct.
Okay.
Why not? That's Ms. Smith.
Ma'am, we didn't know what the governing board was planning on doing, so really we wanted to generate as much feedback before it was an agendized item to let the governing board choose which path they wanted to go and then have that be available for a public comment period.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as, okay, I had a question on the tip of my tongue and now it's gone to that. Oh, I know, Mr. Burnett, I know wanted to be there.
If it was
Go ahead, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam President. If it was misconveyed, most people assumed it would be a $10 increase, and some of those assumptions were from some of those folks being at the governing board meeting would be my assumption.
Okay, I was commenting, Mr. Burnett was our student advisor trustee, was with you at several of those. I know he's not able to be with us this evening due to a class conflict, but did he take so talk to me a little bit about the student senate, talk to us, oh, I apologize, about the student senate meeting. That was your first meeting, and I understand there were representatives from all of the college senates. So that would be 12, 11, I think it was with him. And I'm sorry he's not here to share. I haven't heard too much from him other than I got a text that all went well. Could you talk about his role from your perspective in these meetings from the leadership of students?
Yes, ma'am. As far as his role went, he was able to organize a special special session with them for us to come and make this presentation happen. He also voiced his, the same comments he made during the previous governing board meeting that, he reviewed it as himself and that, a $300 increase on his end per year for the education he was receiving, he thought was beneficial and was able to communicate that to the student senate on top of the same slides that we were able to convey on the town hall side. So we had a lot of good conversation there, and a lot of the students said if they did, or if the governing board did move forward with an agendized item, that they would likely come in and speak to it, and they did voice their support for it and backed it greatly.
Okay, thank you. I know, again, there were a couple questions that surfaced. Ms. Granillo, I believe those were sent to you. Can you offer feedback or comment on what the questions might have been or were, and the responses that were required from finance?
Certainly, Mrs. Sullivan, happy to do so. So as Mr. Coolidge mentioned, there were really, I'd say a couple, maybe three themes in the questions that came in. And one of the questions, for instance, was around what measures are being taken to alleviate excess spending, or basically what have we done to potentially avoid needing to raise tuition. And my response to that question would be something along the lines of the reminder or the fact that we have reduced total expenditures by $18 million through the current year. We will reduce another 1% in fiscal 24. We'll be at a total of $25.5 million over a 3-year time period. And we are always looking for ways to reduce unnecessary expenditures, as well as find efficiencies, and which could redeploy any savings into other priorities or reduce spending. Another question was whether or not this increase would result in new programming or if it essentially maintains the status quo. And my response to that question would be, at this time, an increase in tuition is intended to address the existing budget gap, meaning that we currently have a budget that reflects more expenditures than revenues, more costs than dollars coming in. An increase in tuition is not intended to result in new expenditures, new programs, etc. And then another common theme that came up was the assumption that this is being driven by our opportunity to offer 4-year degrees. And I wouldn't say that that categorically is correct. What I would say is that as a system, you know, there's a gap in our budget, as we've talked about, that needs to be rectified over the coming years, and this is a step in that direction, and that we are prepared and recommending, as you saw in the presentation, to set the upper division credit hour rate, again, for courses that are only 300 and 400 level courses, at the 150% of basic tuition. So I don't think that the tuition increase, if it moves forward overall, is because of the fact that we can now offer bachelor's degrees. And part of our I don't know, issue or concern, if you will, is that we simply don't know what the uptake on the bachelor's degrees are going to be for Maricopa. So I don't think it is, I don't think we're in a place to be able to say that's our saving grace for all of our budget woes going forward. And really two things about that. Number one is it will cost us some money to stand up those bachelor's degree programs. And then the other aspect of it is we simply just don't have any data to show what the enrollments are going to be, what the uptakes on those programs are going to be. So in the coming years, I think we'll be able to look at things potentially differently. But at this point in time, we're not in a place where I believe we can do that with any kind of certainty whatsoever. So I think, and Mr. Coolidge, you can please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those were kind of the three general questions that were coming out of the what I saw in the feedback.
Yes,
ma'am. So with that, I'm going to go back to you, Ms. Smith. That was certainly one of your questions, was the what were the questions and what were the answers. Do you have any other comments or questions that you'd like to ask either Ms. Granillo or Mr. Coolidge, or even in this case, Dr. Gonzalez?
No, I'd like to read through the document and then get through it, and I'm still having trouble locating it. So I will do that and then be ready for the next work session. Thank you.
Mr. Coolidge,
I will resend it. Okay. I'll send it right now.
Okay. I think our goal is to, well, somehow, I believe the intention is that we might have an action for next Tuesday. So we will have opportunity for more discussion if there is an action item. But as we discussed at the last board meeting, there is a sense of urgency to move this forward. Ms. Granillo, could you speak to that issue again? I believe I asked that at the last board meeting.
Certainly, and forgive me if I didn't follow your question exactly. Yes, I think
that's okay. I didn't ask it probably correctly.
I believe what we were trying to do was to try to, if the decision is to move forward or consider, maybe I should put it that way, a tuition increase for fiscal 24, we were wanting to get that action sooner rather than later. If we are able to get that taken care of and resolved next week, for instance, then that gives us time to, number one, update the student system to make sure that it is accurate for when we open enrollment in the spring semester in March for fall semester. We'll be ready to go. And then also it allows us time to be able to notify and market those changes to our students so that they, especially continuing students, are aware of what's coming when they register in March.
Okay, thank you. So that was Ms. Smith. Dr. Narini, do you have any other questions?
Just a little bit of a side question. With the passing of Prop 308, have we taken into consideration any increase that we may have with some of the undocumented students being able to enroll? And to follow up with that, have we thought about any marketing to those students to get them to enroll?
President Sullivan and Dr. Narini, so I'm going to step out of my bounds just a little bit, but I am somewhat involved in this space. We are working through certainly the changes that need to occur within Maricopa to accommodate the passage of Prop 308. We do have estimated numbers on, for instance, current students that would be eligible for in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition. But what I would also proffer is that essentially kind of just the opposite of what happened when 2008 passed and now made it where undocumented students were not eligible for in-state tuition. We simply don't know what the impact is going to be. We don't know if it drives, many more students back to us that had left us. We also have a switch over in, students that had been paying out-of-state tuition will now be paying in-state tuition. So it's just kind of a move of the resources, if you will. So we are working through all of that, and there is a marketing plan that is either developed or being developed that will reach out and target those students in multiple different spaces to ensure that students that are eligible for in-state tuition and weren't previously are fully aware that they are able to do so.
Great, thank you.
Just to jump in quickly, this is Chuck Coolidge again. Yes, Kim is exactly right. We do have a build out of what we'll be doing as far as to reach those Prop 308 students on a high school and post high school targeted basis, and that should be rolling out fairly quickly.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. McGrath, do you have any last comments or questions?
I do not. No, I do not. Thank you.
Sure. Dr. Thor, you've been unusually quiet today. Maybe I shouldn't use unusually, but
actually,
I haven't heard your voice.
I've been listening very, very carefully to this discussion, and I've been thinking a lot about this, as I'm sure other board members have. I'm not surprised at the, excuse me, largely positive comments coming from students. As I mentioned at our, I believe it was our last meeting, that over the last, frankly, 30 years, has Maricopa has from time to time increased tuition. There was rarely, if ever, any student objection. And I think that really speaks to how smart our students are, and that they know that they are getting a quality education at a very, very affordable price. And they're also experiencing the inflation that everyone else is. They know that costs are going up. Our students, I think, are also very aware that the universities regularly raise tuition and that we have not. I've also had to think about whether or not the board should have been more attentive to the relationship between tuition and inflation and other community colleges and the other WICHE institutions and so on. $10 is a lot of money, but recognizing that we haven't increased it in years makes it very understandable. You know, frankly, perhaps we should have been raising it, you know, $1, $2, or $3 each year over that particular time period, but we didn't do it. And if we don't raise tuition, we'll have to face, you know, as Ms. Granillo indicated, not filling vacant positions, having potentially hiring freezes, or even reduction in force. I also had to think about the fact that I think the slide goes back to 2014 or 2015 when we had the last increase before we went to $85. And it was that same time period that the state was disinvesting in the community colleges. So we really, as a system, had to absorb significant cuts to our revenue. And as difficult as it is, I think we have to raise tuition this time in order to be able to continue to provide quality instruction and services to our students. And I know that is what our students want. That was more a lecture than it was a question.
Well, thank you. You were holding all that in then, I guess, when I didn't hear from you.
Yes, I was.
Yes. Do you have any questions? Certainly appreciate your comments. Do you have any questions?
Well, my only question is on the 5-year projections, because both what was presented to us before and what was presented to us today includes a tuition increase of $3 each year over the next 4 years, but also assumes the differential tuition. So clearly we don't have the differential tuition. So we do have a $10.5 million deficit on what's proposed, which would be addressed if we raise the tuition $10. But then in 25, 26, and 27, are we assuming that we would have the $3 a credit hour increase in each of those years, and that we're going to get the differential tuition issue resolved? In other words, if we were to choose to raise the tuition by $10 a credit hour, does that impact the future projections for 25, 26, and 27?
President Sullivan and Dr. Thor, I wish that I could give the easy answer of yes, it does, and it makes us not have to do any of those other things. I can't say that, though. I can't sit here today and say that that is the case. I think our intention and our desire is to, as we shared a couple of weeks ago, is to try to get some sort of a differential tuition in place for fiscal 25. It may not be, or it may be different elements of a differential tuition that we'll need to look at. Because as I shared, when we have been doing that work over the last several months, there's different things and different, what I've called lovingly aha moments that we as a system have had of some business practices and such that we want to take a step back and evaluate before we make decisions based on data that might have other aspects to it. So we're going to do all of that. And what we would like is over the spring to be able to spend some time in that space and see what at least components of a differential tuition might look like. And so we know on kind of the basic end of things, we know that we were planning for the incremental $3 increases over the next 4 years, which would be a total of $12 by the time we get to fiscal 27. But as I said, even in the spring, when I was presenting this 5-year projection or look, we want to be able to be flexible as we go forward. So I can't sit here today and say we'll never need to raise tuition again. What I would like to be able to say is that if we were to do the $10, which fills the gap that we were projecting to fill for fiscal 24, it may either be able to delay a tuition increase in fiscal 25 and maybe allow us just to focus on differential tuition, but I can't make guarantees either without being able to look at some more data and see what differential tuition can do for us as a system. And then we can layer in also the questions about where 4-year degrees come into play and what the response rate is for that. So I guess what I'm trying to say, and maybe not eloquently at all, is that there's a number of factors that still need to be considered as we go forward, and we want to be able to step through it year by year as much as we can and use that 5-year look to kind of help chart our path, but not necessarily define the future.
Thank you. And let me be clear that I wasn't looking for a guarantee that we would not raise tuition in future years. As I commented earlier, I think that the board may have made a mistake in the past in not having smaller tuition increases, which would have avoided us getting to the place where we are today, where we need to be looking at $10 or more.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Thor. So I have just a couple questions before we adjourn this evening. So building on, oh, wait a minute, excuse me, let me back up. Ms. Nguyen, I apologize. Do you have any comments?
It's okay. No, it's okay. I'm almost done.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I do want a credit hour though for Dr. Thor's comments. No, I think that here's the only, I have a couple questions. When we're getting a lot of information and there's some lack of clarity and there's a lot of great work has gone into this. So are we next Tuesday supposed to vote on whether or not we want to implement what has been presented tonight? Is that what I'm hearing?
That was our interest.
And so I think Ms. Granillo got a lot of, there's been questions that I think aren't answered. How we get back that information from things that were proposed or may come out of this meeting, because this is a big decision. And I almost am wondering, since two of us are going off the board of it, I don't want to postpone it for too long, but is it not better for the new board to make that decision in January?
I think that's certainly a very valid and appropriate question, Ms. Nguyen. If I could be the one to leap in and answer that. I think the sense is that this board has been tracking this budget for a long time. And given what we heard in terms of urgency, et cetera, that we probably do have the information we need and we just need to ferret out whatever other questions board members have, because I believe Ms. Granillo has the answers, and move forward up or down for the reasons that she articulated. I think the sense was, and will all the new board members forgive me for saying this out loud, but bringing them up to speed in the understanding of the budget and all its implications could, not implying anyone is slow to appreciate the information, even with onboarding, put them at a disadvantage.
So the budget is complex, and I don't dispute that at all. I'm asking that question because I think it needs to be
very valid. No, it's very valid. Absolutely.
And the other thing that I see is that so if this gets voted in to do a tuition increase, And to Dr. Thor's point that we probably should have done $2 or $3, I don't know that I agree or disagree, but we did not. So we're here where we are. When is the soonest that the student body will, I know we've said a couple of things. So would that happen in the fall of 2023 or does it happen in 2024? I was unclear. I heard a couple different things.
Ms. Granillo?
President Sullivan, Mrs. Nguyen, do you mean when would the new tuition rate go live?
Yes, please.
It would be for fall of 23. So it would
Okay.
be for fiscal year 23-24.
And so Kim, Ms. Granillo, as a result of that, I think there's, where I think that this takes on like a complexity, if you will, not that is the four-year degree that may take however long it takes, but that cost has not been ferreted out. I mean, we didn't have this before, so that's like a new component, and also the tax structure and the number of people moving to Arizona. There's some numbers that are not, I don't think we know what they're going to be. Maybe I can get that information between now and next Tuesday. I just want to be comfortable with what the projections are. I appreciate that the students understand that they're getting a huge value for their for what they're paying and that they appreciate what the community college is doing. I think that's great. I really like numbers though to determine what is the best course of action. I also think you mentioned something that was very important about waste in terms of open positions maybe we don't need to fill, or looking at could we make this up a different way, maybe by cutting costs? So I have a couple of questions. I'm not going to belabor the point right now, but I'm looking to see, is there another way to possibly accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here? And there may not be, so then the tuition increase is the only choice. So I will email you just some direct questions, and I just appreciate all the information and all the time that's been taken in this presentation. So thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan.
Sure, thank you. Again, I'd like to move us to adjourn the work session, but I want to ensure that board members particularly have answers to questions that I know, Ms. Granillo, you're prepared to answer, and Mr. Coolidge as well. We kind of put you on the spot last week in terms of the PR or feedback from students. But I think if I could recap, we've been hearing from you, Ms. Granillo, for the last few budget presentations this year, which we've already had, what, 2? I'm trying to remember, that we were entering an era where you want to bring us to a balanced budget. And in order to do that, we had to take some serious steps, and leading into and following up on Dr. Thor's comments, you know, the one thing I always reflect on is being a board member requires the ability to take some risks, but mostly to have courage. And probably we have either not been choosing to pay attention, or we're just concentrating on so many other things within our fiduciary responsibility that this might have been one area that got away from us. So I'm feeling, I don't want to say the urgency is in being foolish, but the urgency to ensure that we can move forward in looking at how are we balancing our budget, not only as we move into this upcoming fiscal year, but as we're looking down the road. We're eating away at a lot of funding that while we have been taking cuts, I think your comment was 20 million over the last little while. We've been doing a little while. We've did 16 million, or let's see. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I guess I put this down somewhere, but so I appreciate that you brought that to our attention, and now here we are. We do have to make a decision and move forward. certainly having all the right information is critical to that, and appreciating what the impact on students would be. You know, the incremental increase, I think, is important. One of the pieces I've heard just in conversation from folks is don't nickel and dime me. If you're going to raise the tuition, raise the tuition. And so going year to year, every year $1, every year $2 or $3 sometimes can be at risk. So I'm going to throw this out without anticipating too much pushback here, but did you say that, for example, if instead of 10, we did $12 a credit hour, that there would be a possibility, while we're still working through the differential piece and the four-year degree piece, or the baccalaureate degree piece, in deference to Dr. Narini's point, that may prevent us from having to do an increase next year while we're still figuring things out. Did I hear that at all?
Mrs. Sullivan, I'm not sure I said that, but
okay, then I made that up. I heard $12 somewhere.
but certainly, you know, I do think that we have some, I do believe we have some options available to us. And just to, I think, back up maybe one step, I think to me the point of that 5-year projection or budget look was to figure out how we have a combination of efforts to get us to a balanced budget. And that combination of efforts really is about budget reductions as well as revenue increases. And the revenue increases, as you all have heard me say ad nauseum, really comes in the form of tuition because of the expenditure limit constraints that we have, that really doesn't allow us to look at increasing property taxes beyond new construction. So that's kind of where that whole 5-year look came into being. And you know, the $10 per credit hour meets the need, if you will, or the ask of that 5-year plan for fiscal 24 without having differential tuition. If we were to do something more than that, well, and one more thing before I go there, is that remember too that 5-year projection also doesn't contemplate any new expenditures other than the strategic compensation plan. So everything that we're doing, if we're going to do something new beyond compensation, we are having to reallocate budget from somewhere else in order to do what I would call, you know, a higher priority than whatever that other thing was, if you will. And so if we were to decide to do a $12 increase instead of a $10 increase, I think then that there's a couple of options. One option could be that the full $12 goes towards the budget gap that we have. Another option could be that we could take the additional revenue generated by the $2 per credit hour, which should be around $3.3 million. And we could put that into potentially some new expenditures in some high need areas, such as maybe some student success areas where I'm quite sure, you know, eventually in our strategic plan, we will be even more focused on student success than I believe we already have been. But some of those areas could work with some influx of new revenues or new resources in order to be able to really build out what that plan might look like. So in my mind, I think we have those two options that would be available to us if we were to go higher than the $10 that meets the gap that we were trying to fill in fiscal 24. I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. That's answering my question. So where our bottom line is your basic recommendation is a $10 an hour increase, though that was not shared in tuition beginning in fall of 23, that would then help understand and appreciate where we would go with tuition rates for the baccalaureate programs, which you want to get started with now anyway, from what I heard earlier. That okay, I'm trying to recap all my key points here, and that we would then be moving forward to fill the gap while already taking reductions, and then rather than moving into the meat of, I think you listed technology, which is kind of scary. and other options there, which could be presented as further reductions. That helps us run the shop. And we need to make sure that we're in the best place to, as you said, enhance student success. I think one of the lingering concerns is that $10 an hour is a big leap, but it is a big leap. And to your comment, if we were able to put a little bit extra around that 10, there is a strong possibility it could be directed, as you said, to student success, where we could perhaps stabilize issues for the students where that could create the biggest hardship. So that's what I'm hearing. And then the last is that, hey, we have a fiduciary responsibility. This is where we are financially, and we have to make a decision. So that's all I heard today with student support. I think the board, if board members have further questions in the short while they look at more material and perhaps digest your PowerPoint again today, coupled with your presentation last week or 2 weeks ago, coupled with the one we got a couple months ago, if not even before that, if they and we do some homework on that quickly beyond what we already have done, then they can shoot questions to you and possibly Mr. Coolidge, get answers in quick return. And we can perhaps agendize this for next week. Gosh, fast, but okay, so I'm trying to create a summary and a comment at the same time here and may not be doing a very good job, but that's what I'm hearing. Dr. Gonzalez, you've been quiet as well. Do you have comments?
President Sullivan, I guess like Mr. Storr, I've been listening to the questions and the responses and intently through this presentation. It's certainly a tough decision that's in front of us. I mean, we're about access and ensuring that our students are successful, but there's also a business element to the organization, and you know, the price of doing business has continued to go up over the years. And so I think that, you know, if a board were to approve a tuition increase, that would ensure that we are keeping our level of services where they are today. I think anything beyond what we're discussing now certainly gives us an opportunity, you know, to add to our student success functions and services that we provide. We don't know entirely what this bachelor's degree is going to do to us or for us, and what the students may require in terms of support. We suspect that the level of support that would be needed would be perhaps equal to what they are experiencing through an associate's degree, but the 300 and 400 level courses do tend to step it up a notch, and that might require some levels of support that we just need to enhance through our system. So I'm a little excited to hear this additional conversations through your question and comments that, you know, it leaves us dreaming, what could we do? What more could we provide? And so I just appreciate the questions and the responses that have been given here today. And we're ready to move forward in a direction that's going to support the strategic plan that we hope to finish sometime early to mid next spring. And through the strategic planning process and model that we're looking at, we're coming out of this pandemic quite different from how we looked going into it. The services that we provide look different. The support that we provide looks different. And I just think that we're going to need to continue to enhance how different we look rather than to go back and look like what we look like in the fall of 2019. So if anybody's up for a challenge, I think I am, and we all are, and we look forward to an opportunity to continue to work through what these dollars will provide us. So thank you.
Hello? Hello?
I can hear you, Mrs. Sullivan.
Huh, all of a sudden I lost everyone else. Okay.
I can hear
Thank
you.
you. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, and board members. I'm going to move to close the work session with the intention that if you have any questions from homework or other discernment, that you quickly send those to Kim and Mr. Coolidge and Dr. Gonzalez, and so we can all get our answers and keep moving forward. Again, this is part of our responsibility, and sometimes it's not in the time frame or the ease that we would like it to be, but here we are. So thank you. With that, I'm going to once again say great song as we join together, Kim and excuse me, Ms. Granillo, in this effort, and let's see what the next step brings. So I'll consider our work session adjourned for the evening. Don't go away, because we are now going to move into our agenda review script for our next meeting together, which is next week. Given the holiday season, we usually move quickly in the November-December timeframe, one meeting after another. So again, we're live captioning our meeting, and so those of you who want to participate in that, please look in the chat window of our WebEx meeting, where you will find a link, and please click on that link to open a web page with the live captioning. Going to call to order the agenda review meeting of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board of December 6, 2022. And today we will review the agenda for the December 13, 2022 board meeting. For the record, I'm going to call a roll of board members. I will start by asking Mr. Burnett, our student trustee, is present. Ms. Bittersmith, we know, is not able to attend this evening. Ms. McGrath?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Narini?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Thor?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen?
Present.
With my presence, we have 6 board members present, 1 absent. Our student trustee is unable to be with us this evening. Moving into the agenda then for December 13, we will do the usual call to orders, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then move through a series of reports. We have, let's see, the Faculty Executive Council will make a verbal report. I'm unclear yet on the Adjunct Faculty Association report, whether it'll be writing or in present. We will have some staff representation, a student life report from Phoenix College, and then we'll move into awards and recognitions, which is probably one of the better, exciting places in our agenda. So that'll be fun. And then to your report, Dr. Gonzalez, Chancellor's report. There will be a citizens interim, and then we would move to a consent agenda. It's actually very brief. I'll read the items. The first item is approval of a special fee of $225 per semester for incarcerated reentry program laptop technology to provide incarcerated students access to online education via Rio Salado College. Board members, is there any comment or question on that?
Yes.
Yes. Hello.
Go ahead, Ms. Nguyen.
I just wondered how many students this impacts. How many people will be affected by this?
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, President Sullivan, Mrs. Nguyen, I would ask that if Dr. Kate or one of her representatives is on, or substitute is on, to please respond.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. President Sullivan, this is Kate Smith, and thank you for the question, Ms. Nguyen. We currently have, we're going to pilot this online technology access at Perryville Prison, where we currently have 600 students who are participating in our print-based courses. So this will give them much more access at the Perryville location.
And that's
then depending on the success, we'll be able to scale elsewhere.
That's a woman's prison though, correct?
Yes, it is.
That's wonderful. No, that's great. And I appreciate, I think it's a really important thing that we do because reentry, if we do this right and we support them in reentering, we can lower recidivism and give them a stable base in which to restart their lives. And I think it's a totally appropriate thing. So I applaud your efforts and thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say ditto to Ms. Wynn's comments on that one. Mrs. McGrath, did you have something on that?
Yes. What are we charging now? And is this charge for the machine that they're going to be using, or is this the cost of offering the credits?
If I may, Mrs. Sullivan and Dr.
Oh, yes,
Gonzalez.
please. Yeah,
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ms. McGrath, for that question. So what we currently charge to our in-state students, which is the majority of our print-based students, are in-state. 1,150 out of 1,200 are in-state, and they are charged $85 per credit hour currently. What this fee is it's a fee basically to rent a laptop that has been specially designed to be acceptable for use in Perryville Prison. And so there's one company that the Department of Corrections has approved to do this. And so that company charges a fee of $225 per semester for these students to have access to the laptop. On the helpful side of that, the fee is completely able to be covered through Second Chance Pell or federal financial aid.
Thanks for the information. That's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on item, what's noted as item 2?
Well, since it is a fee, I have to comment. And I want to thank Dr. Smith for briefing me on this the last time we met, and so that it is understandable. It is going to be helpful to the students, because to do it all paper and pencil the old-fashioned way is not the way they're going to be re-entering. That's not going to be the world they re-enter to. So having this access for them to do this will be a great benefit for them all. So thank you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, I note it's a placeholder and I'm not sure its current status, but it would be approval of the acceptance of a new grant from Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, or otherwise known as ACCESS, to Maricopa County Community College District for a 3-year behavioral health workforce pilot program from January 1, 2023 to January 1, 2025 in the amount of, okay, let me read this right, $10,284,471. Is there any comment or question on this item? And can I have an update? Will this in fact be on the agenda, or is it still a placeholder? And why is it a placeholder?
President Sullivan, I would ask either Acting Provost Bettina Salas or our General Counsel Janice Falkenberg if they've received the final approved agreement from ACCESS. We were anticipating that we might receive the IGA by December 5th. Of course, December 5th has come and gone. So Bettina or Janice, do we have an update on that?
Certainly, Dr. Gonzalez. President Sullivan, members of the board, the IGA item was received from ACCESS yesterday afternoon, and so we have routed it to legal, and legal's in the process of expediting the review of the IGA so that we could have the finalized item to you and remove this placeholder by tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Could I ask who that was speaking?
I'm sorry, this is Acting Vice Chancellor and Provost Bettina Salas.
Board members, any other comments or questions on this item?
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes, Dr. Thor.
The item doesn't indicate which of the colleges are going to participate in the program. The item does indicate, I think, that 3 of our colleges have programs in the behavioral health area. Will all of the colleges that have those programs be part of this?
Chancellor, if I might?
Yes, please.
Dr. Thor, this is Ms. Sullis. Yes, so the funding was received by Maricopa and really targeted to expand behavioral health workforce funding. We know that statewide it is a huge workforce need in those areas. So obviously the 3 colleges who currently offer those programming, that programming the funding will be available to them. But in addition to that, we're looking to expand offerings in the non-credit and upskilling space. Maricopa will be co-creating along with Northland Pioneer a statewide curriculum that Access would like to administer statewide to be able to grow the workforce. And so any of our colleges who hope to collaborate on this are being encouraged to come forward and bring forward a scope of work that could be included for the $9,428,000 that would remain.
Thank you.
Board members, any other comments or questions on item 3? Being none, we'll move to item 4, approval of curriculum. We note under courses, there would be 177 deletions new, there will be 6, and 2 modifications. Under occupational programs, there would be 8 modifications and 3 deletions. Are there any comments on item 4 or questions?
Ms. Sullivan, I had a question.
Please go ahead, Dr. Narini.
For nursing, it looks like there's a nursing program. It's on. I'm looking at page 19. It says the proposed changes are admissions criteria. I just want to know what changes to the admissions and how that might affect our enrollment for that program.
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, President Sullivan, Dr. Narini, that's an excellent question. I'd have to defer to, again, to Bettina, our acting Vice Chancellor and Provost, to answer that question. If she's not able to, we'll certainly get that to you as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I will need to go ahead and do a little bit of follow-up with the curriculum team and the nursing leadership, and I'll get back with an answer for the board.
Thank you. And do you have a ballpark of when you can get us the answer, please?
We'll take care of that by tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did have one other, I don't know if it's question or comment. It's on the nutrition and dietetic exam review. It's a 1-credit class. I just want to make sure that they clear that through their financial aid office so that to make sure that it's eligible for financial aid, because oftentimes financial aid doesn't cover courses that are test prep, and the title for this one is Nutrition and Dietetic Exam Review. So I would just encourage them to go through the financial aid office and make sure that this course will be eligible for financial aid.
Thank you, Dr. Narini.
Thank you. Being none, and those are our items for the consent agenda. We move into non-consent action items. First one, if we'll remember, we've had a work session and a first read on this item. So it would be a second read and adoption of the staff policy proposals regarding bereavement leave, catastrophic illness, imminent death leave, sick leave, grievance, and discipline. Board members, do you have any further comments or questions on this item that would appear for voting? Being none, and given today's conversation, you'll note there's a placeholder for a proposed tuition rate increase for fiscal year 23-24. And most likely we put one in there, and we'll certainly have opportunity for input and discussion as it appears there. Any comments or questions on that? Being none, would then move in the agenda to the first read and information items on employment and separations for October 15, 22 through November 4, 22. Then to monitoring reports, focusing on the budget analysis report fund 1. Board members will give their reports, and then we'll look forward to the holiday season with our next meeting to be convened on January 10th, which would be a special meeting for the election of officers and an agenda review for the January 24 regular board meeting. For a conclusion, any other comments or questions, board members? Being none, will be our agenda for next week's meeting. And I want to thank everyone for their participation this evening, for the dialogue, the good comments, and under the work session. And I hope the rest of you all have a good rest of week. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. We'll be in person.